Avoidant attachment style. If our first relationships in childhood were fraught with difficulty, fear, anxiety, pain, uh, trauma, drama, abandonment, abuse, if you had caregivers that were harsh or that were neglecting to your emotional needs, it affects the way that you develop. And one of the ways that it affects you from here on out is that all of your relationships are now characterized by your perception of how a relationship is supposed to go, which is skewed by the relationship you had with your caregivers. So if you had a mom or a dad that was harsh, punishing, or had a temper, you find yourself going into romantic relationships expecting your partner to be harsh and to have a temper. If you had parents who were very calm, very passive, you go into your relationships expecting your parents to be calm and passive. If you had to be the caretaker in your household, then you go into your later relationships, romantic and friendships, expecting to be the caretaker. In fact, we may identify ourselves already with a certain role, like I'm a caregiver, I'm a mother, I'm a dad at heart, I'm the coach, the comedian, the maid, the servant. We feel like we've already got these identities carved out for us because of how we were raised in our household growing up. But some of us, because of the trauma that we experienced early on and how bad it really was in our household, we become what is termed as avoidant. So avoidant attachment style is handling relationships from an arm's length, right? So if you're an avoidant attachment style, you could either be dismissive avoidant or you can be fearful avoidant. So a fearful avoidant person feels like not only are they going to get hurt, but they feel like they can't handle a relationship. They can't take on the pain of a relationship. They feel inadequate. They feel anxiety and nervousness when it comes to relationships, like they don't have the bandwidth to be able to take all of the nuances and all of the things that go along with being in a relationship. And so they just avoid relationships altogether if they can. Or if they're in a relationship, they try to sabotage the relationship they're in before it gets too serious because they're just so fearful. And dismissive avoidants are the ones who feel like, well, yeah, but it's not me who's the problem. The reason I'm a dismissive avoidant is because everyone else cannot be trusted. And that is the attitude of a dismissive avoidant. They're like, hey, life is better alone. And so they go through life and they're successful maybe in their career and they have their talents and their abilities. They believe in themselves, but they do not believe in anyone else because they feel like they cannot trust anyone else. And so they go to the extreme of avoiding all relationships or as many relationships as they can, or just romantic relationships. They may go as far as to take the attitude, all men are garbage. All men are cheats, they're devils. Or no woman can be trusted. So do you see an avoidant attachment style in yourself or someone that you know? Do you feel like you may be a fearful avoidant? Or do you feel like you might be the type of person who is dismissive avoidant at times? And sometimes we can slip in and out of these different avoidant types, right? We can be fearful at some point and then become more dismissive avoidant. We can also be anxiously attached, and that's where you're going in between either I really got to be in a relationship. I feel so alone. I just really want to be with someone. I need someone so bad. I really, really, really want to be in a relationship. And you're just like crying that you're so lonely, and you're telling all your friends and your family members you're just so lonely. But then as soon as you get into a relationship, it's like, oh my God, I cannot handle this. I cannot handle this. And then you sabotage your way out of the relationship using various techniques. Right? You can use devaluation to convince yourself you no longer like the person. You can try to start fights in the relationship to get the relationship to fall apart. You can try to do something that you think the person is not going to like, or try to get that person mad, so you can really bring out the inner evil in that person, and then have a reason to leave. But what avoidants really love to do when they get tired of a relationship is just disappear. And so they call that ghosting. So they try to become suddenly invisible, kind of like a child who thinks that when their eyes are covered, you can't see them. So they'll just suddenly stop texting back, suddenly stop answering phone calls. They may go as far as the block. They may go as far as the move. They become a ghost. And this is their way of getting out of situations that they feel like they can't handle. These situations that are just too much for them are something that the rest of us call relationships. But they don't want to have to deal with the conflict that's going to come from having to tell someone, hey, look, I'm not that into you. They don't want to say that. Why? Because of fear. They just fear. They fear that they don't have the words for it. They may fear that they don't have the personal power to be able to enter into a discussion where their points might get refuted, and then the person's going to be like, come on, let's work it out. And they're already convinced that it's not going to work. So they don't want to get into that. It's fear. They fear because they feel like they don't have the skills, the life skills to be able to communicate. So they try to ghost, or they try to run away from relationships. They try to pull away as fast as they can. They try to become judgmental of the people that they're in relationships with, right? So avoidant persons can go as far as to become so avoidant that they start avoiding all social interactions. And then they might even say, I have social anxiety, right? But it can get to the point where it actually affects them in their career. So they're afraid to take promotions or do anything that's going to put themselves out there, because they're just like, please let me stay in my comfort zone. I'm afraid to fail. Probably stemming back to childhood, when they were not told that it was okay to make a mistake by their parents. And so it holds them back in their career. Some avoidant persons go as far as to avoid any group of people unless they know they will be accepted in that group of people. Otherwise, they're not going up. They're not talking to a group of people. They're not going to enter a group. They're not going to say hi or greet a group of people unless they know they would be accepted there. They're not going to join a club or an activity unless they already know for sure that they're going to be accepted. They have to have that guaranteed acceptance. But if there's not guaranteed acceptance, they're not doing it. But then that opens them up for being manipulated, because manipulators will make you feel so comfortable, like you are so accepted by them. And when you spend your life avoiding, and now someone's suddenly making you feel accepted, you can fall right into their trap, because you've made yourself so thirsty for some type of validation. Maybe because you didn't get validation from your father growing up. And then, bam, you're in the trap of the manipulator. And then you get hurt. And then what do you say? Darn it, it happened again. I can't trust anyone. Why does this always happen to me? Some people who are avoidant will hold back in intimate relationships for fear of maybe being shamed or feeling ashamed or being judged by their spouse. Sometimes those who are avoidant will be afraid to offer up their opinion, like at work or something in a group setting, or even to anyone, their boss. Some who are avoidant will feel inhibited and inadequate. And so they won't try to reach out and move themselves forward in life. Instead, they'll just keep themselves small. Probably because they had parents that tore them down or never built them up. Some who are avoidant consider themselves to be socially inept. So they're like, oh, I can't. I am horrible. I'm a horrible speaker. So I'm not going to talk at my brother's wedding. I'm not going to give presentations at work. Nope. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it is their middle name. They don't volunteer to do anything that's going to put them in a position where they got to be speaking or be in front of someone or be social. And that holds them back in relationships and in their career. They're reluctant to take any type of risks. They don't want to be embarrassed. Sometimes they feel like they don't want to embarrass not just themselves. They feel like they're going to make other people feel uncomfortable with their own embarrassment. And yes, an avoidant person runs away from everyone, which means they're also running away from people that are good for them. So they can be in a relationship with a great gal or a good guy. And at the first sign of trouble, they're out of there. There's just an imprint on the wall in the shape of their body. They're just gone. Or they sabotage the relationship in some way, try to find some reason for it not to work. So do you wonder this about yourself? Why am I afraid of commitment? Why am I avoidant in relationships, never letting my guard down? Why do I feel like I can't trust anyone? Or why do I go after emotionally unavailable partners? Why do I always want to date someone who's in another state or country or in jail? Or why do I go after people who they're not living far away from me, but they're unavailable because they're already in another relationship? Why am I all of a sudden attracted when I know they're married? And then if I am in a relationship with a good person, why do I unconsciously sabotage it? Try to find a way to prove that this person can't actually love me. Why do I feel so much anxiety and anger whenever I'm vulnerable? It's because of your development. It's because when you were developing as a kid, you were taught through your relationships, or you gave yourself the story because of the deprivation, the abuse, the neglect, that you're not worthy of love, or that other people just cannot be trusted. The fearful avoidant says, nobody could ever love me. And the dismissive avoidant says, I can't love anyone. I could never love anyone because no one is trustworthy. I can't trust anyone. I was talking to one of my collaborators who's avoidant. She said, I said, do you really think you can't trust any men? Mindful, I am a man. She's talking to me. She's like, no, absolutely not. I'm going to find out that they're either an alcoholic or a drug addict or they're a child molester or something. That was what she thought. Any man that I talk to, I'm going to find out he's one of those things. She's saying this directly to me. It defies logic because obviously this can't possibly be true for all men. How can you judge an entire gender, billions of people on the earth? It's not possible. You haven't met all of those people. So maybe we should slow down on making bold, snap assumptions about an entire gender. Maybe instead, what we need to do is sophisticate our belief system, because we're working in the traumatized mind when we're being avoidant. It's not going to help us in our life. It's not really helping you to not get hurt. What you're doing is starving yourself for connection, starving yourself for connection, starving yourself. So then you finally go and get a little connection and then you get hurt again. And then you go, oh my God, now this time I'm never going to do this again. And you become increasingly avoidant, increasingly fearful. When you live by fear, you're just attracting more fear into your life. You're just attracting more fearful situations into your life. You see, because on the micro level, what's actually happening is you're creating a fear state in your brain so that you're actually living out the catastrophes. You're living out all the worst case scenarios, all the worst things that could possibly happen in your brain. You live there. Everyone's an alcoholic. Everyone's a molester. Everyone's abusive. And you're living in that space. So you're walking through life and you're looking at all these people and you're assigning these labels and these stories to all these people. Look at that guy. He's probably out to get me. That person right there is probably trying to rob me. That woman over there probably trying to get my money. That man is probably a rapist. And you're doing all of that extra negative stories. So it keeps the subconscious mind constantly in a state of fear, fear. This impairs your decision-making abilities. So then the manipulators, who are actually experts at getting around your subconscious defense systems, the manipulators come in, they get around your subconscious defense systems because they're experts in that, and then they get in and then you get hurt again. It's like, why do I keep ending up with these horrible people, these manipulators, these users? Or you chose someone who was unavailable because you thought that was going to keep you safe on some level. I can't get hurt because he's already in marriage, so I already know how this is going to end. Well, yeah, but think that out. It's going to end in heartbreak. Because if you start to have any feelings for this person, you're going to be always feeling second fiddle and inadequate. It doesn't work. You can't chase unavailable partners. And so how do we break the cycle? How do we get out of being in that fear-based mindset? How do we let go of this attachment style? And how do we get into a secure attachment? What is a secure attachment anyway? A secure attachment is a person that does not fear relationships so much that they avoid them. That's all. A secure attachment is someone who recognizes that things are going to be difficult at times. Not every person is perfect. Not every relationship is perfect. But if they don't expose themselves to some risk, they can never get any reward. A securely attached person is secure, not in the fact that they can judge who's good and who's bad. A securely attached person is secure in the fact that no matter what someone else turns out to be, they will still be safe. They will still be okay. They will be able to handle it. Catch this again. A securely attached person is secure, not in that they can trust everyone else. They're secure in that even if someone turns out to be untrustworthy, they will be okay. They can handle it. A securely attached person is not walking around trying to avoid getting hurt. Think about it. Can you avoid all hurt? Now, on the surface, it sounds logical. Like, yeah, we're supposed to avoid getting hurt, right? But if you think in the physical realm, you can't really get anything done if your avoidance of getting hurt is so extreme that you that you wouldn't do anything. If your avoidance of getting hurt is so extreme that holds you back, you not only can you not learn to ride a bike or a skateboard or drive a car, you won't want to leave your house because there's always risk. There's risk to everything. But you recognize in the physical realm that you have to expose yourself to some risk and you don't mind going out. You may even have hobbies. You may even like to ski or play golf. If you don't have a hobby, by the way, get one. Expose yourself to the risk of making a mistake, of getting hurt. Pick a sport, pick an art, pick a sport and an art. Get into it. Let it be theater, painting by number. It doesn't matter. Clay. Find something. Jump into your hobbies. Don't be avoidant, because a securely attached person recognizes that you have to go and interact. You have to be vulnerable in life, and you have to expose yourself to some risk. So in the energy realm, a secure person recognizes that even in relationships, you have to expose yourself to some risk. It's just that simple. If you want connection, you need to expose yourself to some risk. Now, I'm not saying that everyone here needs to go out and get into a relationship and start dating. It's really not necessary. It's not a prerequisite for your happiness that you be in a romantic relationship. Okay, that's not important toward your happiness. What's important is that you're not avoiding relationships out of fear. Make sure that if you're choosing not to be in a certain relationship or a certain type of relationship, make sure you're doing that out of purpose. Like, according to my purpose, according to my dream in life, that's not what I want. Let that guide you. So it's not important whether you decide to be in a relationship or not. Just make sure that your decision is not out of fear. It's the same with those who go into relationships because they're so afraid of being alone. Wrong reason to go into a relationship. You don't go into a relationship because you're afraid of being alone. You go into a relationship because that is your dream, that is your purpose, and you're doing so out of love for the other person, for yourself. Let that be the same reason you choose to be by yourself, out of love, out of purpose, out of your dream, out of your vision for the future. Is this making sense so far? Let's break it down with another example. Let's take food. Have you ever gotten hurt by food? Have you ever eaten a food that didn't agree with you, that made you sick, that hurt your stomach? Every human being who is an adult, even children, all human beings have had food poisoning or gotten sick or had upset stomach with something that didn't agree with them that they ate. Now, how logical would it be for a person to say, well, that's it for food? Why, I've gotten sick. I've been hurt now by this. I'm done with this food stuff. Can you imagine a sound and mind person doing that? Would you ever do that? Would you give up on food because you got hurt? Of course not. So how do you handle the fact that you have gotten hurt with food without avoiding all food? How do you handle it? Because obviously you're still here, so you must be eating something. So how do you handle it? Are you just surviving solely on vitamin supplements? You have to be eating something. How do you handle it? Because you've gotten hurt, so you have every reason to give up on food. How are you handling it? Likely you take a mitigated approach, a nuanced approach. Just fancy ways of saying you're not extreme. Instead of just giving up on all food, you said, you know what? I'm going to be careful around this type of food. I notice that when I eat this style of food, it doesn't agree with me. So I'm going to avoid just that. I'm just going to pick out the parts that I don't like and avoid that. I notice that this particular dish doesn't agree with me, so I'm not going to do that dish. That's how you do it, right? I notice that restaurant, every time I eat there, I get sick there, so I'm not going to eat there anymore. That's how you do it, right? But you don't give up on all food. You just go about it more carefully, but not so careful that it limits your ability to enjoy this essential part of life. That's the same way that we must approach relationships, because relationships are an essential part of life. Not romantic, just all relationships, because we have to go and trust a banker with our money and trust a grocer with our groceries. We have to trust people on some level. So taking the approach, I can't trust anyone, is not logical. It's extreme. Let's be more nuanced. We can trust some people to some degrees, varying degrees for varying people, right? You trust your nanny more than you trust your mailman, but obviously you trust your mailman with your mail, right? But you're not going to give your mailman your baby. This is making sense? But you trust them both, but on different levels. It's different levels for different people. Meanwhile, a convicted criminal or a convicted offender, you don't trust him at all, right? So because you don't trust him so much at all, you push him way on the outside. It's different levels of trust for different people. You trust your neighbor enough, but it doesn't mean, you might let him water your plants, but you're not going to give him the key to your safe, right? Different levels of trust for different people is the right way to go about relationships. Staying tempered and taking our time in relationships. Whenever you notice like you're getting into a connection with someone and it's moving really fast, pump the brakes. That's not being tempered. That's not being nuanced. That's not being reasonable. If it's moving really fast, just pump the brakes. Take some space. You need time to meditate. Vet, don't date. It's meaning early in the relationship. Be looking for the qualifications of the person, right? These are the ways that we keep ourselves relatively safe without giving up all freedom. So we're exposing ourselves to some risk, aren't we, by going into relationships? Yes. So will you get hurt? Yes, you're going to get hurt again. Which reminds me of my favorite quote from The Office. I don't know if you guys ever seen that television program. But Michael Scott, he's one of my favorite characters on that show.
You guys might actually get along.
Is she on?
I'm setting Michael up with my landlady. She's really sweet. And whatever, I just can't take Michael like this.
No question about it. I am ready to get hurt again.
This is one of my favorite quotes from that show. Michael Scott's attitude is, I'm ready to get hurt again. Now, this character isn't the picture of mental health, but he is actually displaying the mindset of a securely attached person. You see, when you're a securely attached person, you can take, even with a sense of humor, the reality of relationships is that you'll get out there, you'll try some people out, you'll think that they were a good connection, you vetted them, you thought they were safe, and a lot of times, sometimes they're still going to turn out to be bad news. Maybe like 50% of the time. It's just bad news on various levels. They're not all abusive. Sometimes you just end up having a difference like between you and them, like you don't mesh on certain levels, right? But that's okay, isn't it? Yeah. Some people, they'll drift away and they'll actually ghost you, right? And then other people, you'll want to get away from them. But how should we handle that, though? Should we just ghost individuals? Well, no, that's unhealed. That's unhealed way of handling the conflict, of handling the fact that there's friction now. So what do we do? Well, we need to develop the skills of boundaries, setting boundaries, assertiveness, and evading arguments. When you have the skills of setting boundaries, assertiveness, evading arguments, then you're no longer afraid of relationships. You got to have the skills. Relationships require skills just like anything else. It's like cooking. If you don't have the skills of cooking, you will be afraid to cook. Makes sense, right? If you don't have the skills of driving, you'll be afraid to drive. But if you have the skills, then you're not afraid of it anymore, right? Because you've learned how to do it. The more you know, the less you fear. So get the skills of relationship. Learn how to be assertive. Take my trauma healing course. Take the assertiveness training videos that are on my YouTube. Learn the skills of a relationship. An assertive person knows how to state facts. So instead of just ghosting a person, right, they're able to speak up and communicate to an individual that they're no longer jiving with, right? What could they say? They might say, "Hey, babe, I'm the type of person who likes to take a lot of time to himself. So although I've enjoyed so far getting to know you, I think I'd like to cool back for a while. Just get some more me time. So I'm not going to be texting as much." That's simple. You could say, "I have some concerns about moving forward with this relationship beyond this point. So I'm going to cool back." Plain and simple. Although you're a great person, I'm not sure you're the great person for me. It's okay to break up with someone using your words, right? In fact, it's the only proper way to do it. We may have to expose ourselves to hearing what they have to say. We may be afraid, "Oh, I'm not going to know how to handle it if they come back at me." It doesn't matter what they say. When you assert a boundary, you just stick to your boundary. Just stick to your boundary. "Hey, I'd like to take some space back, just kind of take some me time from the relationship. I just wanted to reach out to you, kind of express that so you know what's happening if I'm not responding as much." They say, "No, why? You don't have to do that. What did I do wrong? I don't see what I did wrong." You could say, "It's not that you did something wrong. This is just my preference right now. And this is sort of the way I am. And I know you're getting to know me. So I'm just being open with you. This is just the way that I personally am. And this is what I want to do." "Well, if you need me to blah, 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 such and such, you let them go, but you stick to your boundary. I understand what you're saying, but this is something that I'm going to do. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to know that and hear that from me. Didn't want to disappear on you." In the end, they have to say, "Hey, well, whatever. I appreciate that." If they show that they can't handle it and they get mad, well, then you dodge the bullet. It's a good thing you dumped them, right? But a healthy person is just going to say, in the end, I mean, they may have some feelings at first, but in the end, they're going to say, "Okay, well, I respect your decision. I respect your decision to choose. And, reach out to me if you change your mind." Bam. And you're out. Whew, was that hard? Maybe our nervous system got upset, but you can handle it. That's the important thing. A securely attached person recognizes that they can handle the dysregulation, the nervous system flare up. How do you handle it? Do your breathing, pause and meditate, use the JOT method. That's it. Do your breathing, rule of 7 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then perhaps respond. Then you're done. "Oh my God, I'm feeling a lot of feelings. I'm feeling a lot of emotions." Use the JOT method. Go in, journaling, organize his thoughts. What happens every time you use the JOT method? 5-10 minutes later, you're completely calm. You're at least less stressed than you were if you're not actually falling asleep. It is a tool for emotional regulation. When you have the tools, you're prepared for the job. You don't have to be afraid of relationships. Don't be afraid of relationships. Have the tools. Enter relationships with the tools. Let's change our beliefs around conflict. Conflict is friction. Don't avoid conflict. Friction can be good. In woodworking, friction is the way you smooth out the rough edges to make sure the pieces fit. That's the purpose that conflict serves in your relationship. It creates friction, which can smooth out the edges, your rough edges, their rough edges, to make the pieces fit. Embrace conflict. Understand it is an inevitability of all relationships. Conflict will come. You need the skills. How to evade arguments, skills of assertiveness, emotional regulation. You need the skills. And you go in, you handle your conflicts with ease, with precision, talk things out. Things have to be talked out in relationships. No running, no fighting, no fawning, no freezing. Talking like this, like what I'm doing right now. Calm, simple talking. No arguments ever, just talking. Let's change our beliefs around rejection. We feel like, oh no, if we get rejected, that's the worst thing in the world. No, it is not. It could be one of the best things that happens. You could be getting rejected because there's something about you that repels the other individual. That's so insulting. I don't want to repel anyone. Yes, you do. You want to repel narcissists, you want to repel egopaths, and you want to repel persons who do not possess the qualities that you value, who do not share your values. You want to repel people who are annoying and irritating to you. You want to repel people. There are some people you want to repel, and if you keep going through life thinking that you're supposed to try to not repel everyone, and you're going to keep a bunch of people around who are inadequate for your life. And you're going to say, oh, I get so tired of people, I just want to be alone. You get tired of people because these people that you keep attracting and keeping around you are all bad news. You get rid of these people and you find the authentic connections by going through rejection. Relationships are a numbers game, just like sales. You need to go through many, many rejections of you rejecting people and them rejecting you, which I know is your worst nightmare. But on the other side of your worst nightmare is your greatest dream. Authentic connections. People who you really love that really, truly love you. Well, how am I going to get there through rejection? Because that's how you get rid of all the people that you don't totally love, and you let all the people that don't totally love you get rid of you. On the other side of that is you being completely authentic the entire time, and only people who are left are the people who absolutely love you and you absolutely love. Here's that formula again. Through rejection, you get rid of all the people that you don't totally love, and all the people that don't totally love you leave. Who's left? It's just the people that totally love you. That is your dream. This is what you always wanted. A tribe of people that you could be close to, that you could trust, that you could be yourself around. Don't fear the rejection. Don't fear the conflict. Embrace it. Embrace it as a part of life. Don't be a ghost. Ghosts are dead. Be a human being. Be alive. Engage. Learn the skills. Don't be avoidant. Be secure in your attachments.